Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Wilson, Senior Editor of Supermarket News, and welcome to another episode of Supermarket News Off the Shelf podcast. Here with me today is Doug Baker. He is the Vice President of Industry Relations at FMI. Doug, thanks for joining us today.
Bill, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk about a study that I believe was released by FMI. It was called Shopper Loyalty in the Digital Age. And obviously, a stat that really stood out to me was that 74% of grocers believe that digital shopping has made shoppers less loyal. So you want to maybe get a little bit more into that. Perhaps this was a offshoot of the pandemic and just people getting used to ordering through online, and maybe that just kind of distorted the loyalty aspect there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So the research that we did with our partners, Incisiv and Loyal Guru, really sort of highlighted the importance of offering a seamless omni-channel experience. And, that really is what is best to drive shopper loyalty, or at least foster the loyalty. It includes in providing a well-designed digital platform, integrating the digital channels, and offering personalized experiences that meet those needs and expectations of individual shoppers. And I think we can probably agree that through the pandemic, it wasn't quite seamless. Maybe it was a little clunky. Some retailers were coming on very quickly. And so we've continued to evolve those platforms over time, improving search, allowing lists to go to the basket, so those are an evolution type activity. And I think some of the challenges were is that we had to move so quickly because of the environment that we were in, that some consumers, they experienced a less than perfect situation when they were on an e-commerce site.
Does that number surprise you, 74%? Do you think that's too high, or I mean, were you surprised by that number?
Not overly surprised by the number. If you think about our customers, the consumer, they shop multiple stores, right? And there's probably a lot of effort in shopping multiple stores because you got to get in a car, you got to drive to it, you got to go in the store, right? So there's a lot of effort. But when I'm sitting at my desk or on the couch or on my phone in the car, to be able to move from one site to another is relatively pretty easy. So you really got to work hard as a retailer in order to keep them engaged. So it wasn't a complete surprise, but on the reverse of that equation, it's about striking the right digital balance with shoppers, so that you can be a strong differentiator for grocery stores. I think it's still important to know that the brick and mortar stores are still the most important asset in the industry for retailers and therefore for CPG companies. So you've got to be able to meet them in both of those locations to make their experiences strong. And the study found that 71% of grocers are saying that improving that shopper loyalty is really a top-down opportunity. It's thinking about it holistically across the organization. So it's got to start at the top, and it can't be just a department-specific activity. Otherwise, it'll get too disjointed.
So do you have any tips for grocers as far as what they can do to help with customer loyalty when it comes to e-commerce and digital shopping?
I think you would be looking at a lot of the same things you look at when you're in the store, right? It's availability, it's convenience, it's speed, it's experience. If I'm more in tune to shopping online than in person, it's how do you connect me? So, there was a big conversation earlier in the year around metaverse, right? I know we have a couple of CPG companies and retailers that are living in the metaverse, trying it out. We like to think of it a little bit more about the connected commerce, frankly. And so if you think about me as a shopper or you as a shopper, if I tend to lean towards online, how are you connecting me in your environment, no matter where I'm at? Being that not only do we shop at multiple stores, but we also frequent multiple digital platforms. So how are you keeping me engaged across that so I'm staying connected?
So how can they keep the customers engaged? What could they do to make sure that they're locked in on, their app or their website, so, you can take advantage of that?
Yeah, the app plays an important role, right? If it's a retailer's app, That really keeps you as a captured audience. And so that's extremely important. That's sort of the tip of the spear, is making sure that your loyalty app is really tuned in, and it has all the features that a consumer might be looking for, whether it be, recipe recommendations, social media, helping me find products easier, helping me find products that relate to my lifestyle. But if you need to depend on other vehicles for that, then it's also making sure that those are connected well with your organization. I mean, everybody's spending time on other social media platforms. So how are you engaging that social media platform in order to have their attention when they're on it? Whether that's Pinterest or LinkedIn or Instagram, any of them, frankly, is where is your message and how is your branding moving throughout all of those in order to stay connected with your customer no matter where they're at. So it's a lot around form and function, but also platform, making sure that you're out across several of the platforms so they see you often.
How do you think grocers generally are adapting to this kind of technology when you talk about apps and websites and making them user friendly? And like you said, ease of use and convenience and speedy delivery. Have most grocery chains really caught on to this, or are they kind of lagging behind and they need a little work?
It depends if you're comparing us to other industries, right? I think we all agree that electronics and apparel may be moving quicker than food, but that's general. That was always the case. The grocery industry moves a little bit slower. I actually have been pretty impressed with the pace, and whether that was sort of out of a need as a result of the pandemic, and that just accelerated things. We do some work with Fit for Commerce. We've done a couple of research products with them, and it sort of benchmarks retailers where their e-commerce sites are, and it was pretty impressive to see the leaps that they made through the pandemic and since the pandemic. And I'll give you one example is search, right? So personally, online for me is not a very good experience because I struggle with search. When I'm in a store, it's easier for me to find things. It's tactile. I can touch it. When I'm online, I'm just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And the next thing you look up and you've lost 15 minutes of your day and you'll never get it back. So being able to help a customer search that for that particular item, and then extending that, searching it based on their own needs, their own personal needs, that it continues to improve. But then if I'm off their site and I'm on another site and I'm looking at a recipe that I really love and I want to be able to get those items, but I want to get them from my grocer, making that easier for me to do. All of those things are improving. I think we can debate all day long if they're improving quickly enough because we see the pace of technology growth so exponentially moving fast. I mean, think about ChatGPT and how quickly that's moving. I think sometimes we benchmark against the fastest moving technologies and we think that everything else should be moving at the same pace. So I'm optimistic, I'm pleased, but you could say we should probably be moving faster.
Do these apps or websites really take advantage of, I mean, you mentioned Chat GPT, and that accelerated rise. Do these apps take advantage of, voice sensitive information, like with Alexa and Siri, you can always like just speak in and say, hey, find me this for this recipe. Have they gone to that extent yet?
There's pilots. So there's a group called the Open Voice Network that I spend a lot of time with, and is engaged across several sectors of the several industries, I should say, and globally. And that's being tested. It's in some instances it's further down the road for some grocery retailers. I know QSR is looking at it as well. But that's one of those things. And I think the reason why it's important to articulate how quickly do we move is that anytime you introduce something like this, you want to introduce some consistent standards in the process, right? Otherwise, you have 5 trains traveling at 70 miles an hour and they're all going in an opposite direction. So being that we have a global economy, And a lot of the brands and retailers are in multiple states or multiple countries. You need to make sure that whatever you're introducing as a technology is consistent. So having a set of baseline standards. So voice is no different. Being able to use that voice is extremely important, but there's platforms that support voice. And so how do you create that consistent form and function, whether it be in nomenclature, the way it's delivered, how the experience, create some standards within that, and then allow that retailer or that user of the tool then start to differentiate once they get beyond the standard baseline.
So, I mean, we just talked about, the voice activated commands. What are the next steps do you see in the coming years? You talked about that, of course. Are there any other features that you can see that are going to come into play, in the next 5 years or so?
Well, I think we, a little bit earlier on, we talked about that seamlessness of the technology and that connected experience that a customer might have. I think we'll continue to see an improvement on that, so much to the point where, and again, you go back to GPT, is how predictive can it become? That it knows me so well based on the things that I'm doing and saying and looking at, that it starts providing me very specific recommendations, whether that be in the recipe, whether that be in the store with products. How about new items? Online, how do you promote new items online? In store, you can make a nice big end cap out of it. So how do you make the same noise and excitement online? So I think we'll continue to see that seamless, that experience, that customized experience to me specifically, and get to the point where it's actually becoming predictive.
So all this technology is great. Apps are great. Everything, Chat GPT, all great stuff. But we're going away from the personal touch, the human element here. Do you see us maybe circling back to that, where people will go to their local grocer and really establish more of a relationship with them? Or are we gone from that and it's all going to be digital like this, and that human element is going to be taken out of the equation?
I think at the end of the day, the one thing that's really grounded is that humanity is social, right? We need those social connections. And the grocery store, the physical brick and mortar store, provides that for you. So I think you'll probably see a nice blend. Again, 90+% of sales are still done in the store. That doesn't mean that e-commerce is always going to be small. I think it's going to continue to get bigger. But I think the way we use it doesn't necessarily mean that I can't be in the store using technology or using the e-commerce while I'm in the store. So I think it's really going to be about how technology, the physical and the digital presence, comes together to support that customer no matter where they're at. But at the end of the day, you ground it in the fact that we are social beings. We need that connection. And you get that in a grocery store. There is an experience. And some people, some people have dates in grocery stores, right? So how do you create that to keep that going is really important.
Anything else you want to add about the study that you guys did release? We've touched on a couple things, but did anything else jump out at you?
The one that really jumped out at me, and I'm thinking, how do we do a better job with this, is this whole idea of point system. So 82% of shoppers told Loyal Guru researchers that they preferred price discounts. That's not a surprise. And points as a part of their loyalty program. And so some retailers dabble with that. Some of them are using it for their private brand programs. So if you buy a private brand item off the shelf, you earn points, and then you can apply that back. But if you think about how you continue to bring that person back to you, those point systems are, they make sense. I go to the same gas station because I earn points, and eventually I get cents off or dollars off my next bill. And so I think there's, we maybe haven't tapped into all the ways that we can keep a customer loyal to us, whether they're in the physical environment or the digital environment. And there's something there with that point system because it's a reward system and everybody likes to be rewarded for their loyalty. And how do you do that actually builds over time so that it really sort of drives them to continue to focus on you because they're trying to build a significant benefit.
So why do you think grocers have been really, it sounds like they have not really capitalized on those point systems the way they could. Why do you think that is?
It could be an infrastructure issue. How do you manage it? How do you maintain it? How does the data stay correct and accurate? So that would be my first guess at the reason why maybe they're not taking advantage of it as much as maybe we hear. Some of them are using it. It just I think it's a strategy by retailer. Case by case retailer strategy. But I would go back to, resource, the ability to collect the data, manage the data, make sure it's complete and accurate and executionable. And that's something that, that takes a lot of effort, when you're doing stuff like that and, systems upgrades and, the people resources to stay on top of it, making sure that the customer's doing it, the way they're supposed to be doing it. So there's a lot of work involved.
Doug Baker, Vice President of Industry Relations at FMI. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.